Coming up today, a controversial parliamentary revision bill that was vetoed by President Park Geun-hye last week will be put up for a revote at the National Assembly next Monday. The ruling party says it will attend but won't vote. For the first time ever, a Korean candidate has been selected to head the United Nations maritime body. Lim Ki-tack's 4-year term will begin next year. Plus, in a desperate bid to prevent economic chaos, Greece asked the European Union for a last-minute bailout extension as default looks imminent. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, July 1st here in Seoul. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this morning, Korea's National Assembly is going to hold a revote on the controversial revision to the parliamentary law that was vetoed by President Park Geun-hye last week. The vote will take place next Monday, but the ruling Saenuri party, which has a majority in the Assembly, says its lawmakers will not be casting their ballots. Ji Myung-gil starts us off.
The National Assembly will hold a plenary session on Monday to handle the revision to the vetoed parliamentary law. Assembly Speaker Chung Yu-ah said he decided to call the session to get Parliament moving again.
The National Assembly has so many urgent livelihood bills to pass. It was necessary to normalize parliamentary affairs.
The move prompted the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party to end its boycott of parliamentary business. But the turmoil in the assembly may not be over. Members of Chung's ruling Saenuri party are not expected to vote on the bill, with Saenuri floor leader Yoo Seung-min saying lawmakers' participation in next Monday's session is not aimed at voting on the issue. That drew another sharp rebuke from the opposition, which called it a cowardly act.
The Saenuri party must take part in the revote and pass the vetoed bill. They shouldn't say two words with one mouth. They shouldn't break their earlier promise to pass the bill.
If the bill, which enables lawmakers to request changes to government ordinances, fails to pass again on Monday, it will automatically be scrapped. President Park has said she opposes the legislation because it violates the constitutional separation of powers, saying lawmakers were attempting to challenge the government's administrative power. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Now, ignoring calls for him to step down, it was business as usual for under-fire Saenuri Party floor leader Yoo Seung-min on Tuesday. Yoo chaired a policy meeting and is scheduled to attend government consultations next week on an extra budget to prop up the ailing Korean economy. The floor leader has been mired in controversy since he worked closely with the main opposition party to pass the recently vetoed revised National Assembly bill. Senior lawmakers close to the president are pressuring Yoo to step down for creating such a big rift between the governing party and the presidential office. But Yoo has supporters of his own in the public. A Realmeter poll on Tuesday showed that more than 45% of respondents said Yoo should keep his position. That's about 14 percentage points higher than those who want him to step down. South Korea has selected Airbus Group as its supplier of in-flight refueling tankers. The high-profile deal is part of a plan to boost the country's air force capabilities amid rising tensions in the region, including the threat posed by North Korea. Connie Kim reports.
Korea decided to buy 4 Airbus A330 MRTTs as its aerial refueling tanker in a deal worth 1.5 trillion won, or $1.3 billion, edging out 2 rival competitors. Seoul's Defense Acquisition Program Administration said Tuesday that the Airbus scored high in many categories, including fueling capability.
The Airbus's A330 MRTT has performed excellently in long-distance operational missions with long-haul and high fuel capacities.
Air-to-air refueling, transporting passengers and military personnel, and aerial medical evacuation missions are just some of the capabilities the selected Airbus aircraft boasts. Also known as the flying gas station, the tankers can refuel fighter jets and other warplanes during flight. And under the deal, Korea will get the planes between 2018 and 2019. Airbus's A330 MRTT, Boeing's KC-46, and Israel Aerospace Industries' B767 MMTT competed in the $1 billion bid. And up until the final decision on Tuesday, Airbus and Boeing were neck and neck. But the European jets prevailed. They can carry up to 111 tons of fuel, compared to Boeing's 96 tons, and can also transport up to 300 soldiers, which is about 3 times more than the American aircraft. Although the Airbus tanker comes with a high maintenance cost, it will enable Korea's Air Force to expand its radius of operations to Korea's easternmost island of Dokdo, to the southernmost island of Yeodo, and to the northern part of the Korean peninsula. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
A South Korean civilian group visited North Korea on Tuesday to discuss the details of a planned trip there by Lee Hee-ho, the widow of former South Korean President Kim Dae-jung. They returned without fixing a date for the visit, but say that they will hold more talks in the coming days and weeks. Hwang Sang-hee reports.
Returning from Kaesong on Tuesday, South Korean Chief Delegate Kim Sang-jae said a date has not yet been fixed for the former South Korean First Lady's trip to Pyongyang. Kim was one of 5 representatives from the Kim Dae-jung Peace Center who made a day trip to the border town to meet with North Korean officials.
We told the North Korean officials that she wants to make the trip in July if possible.
Lee Hee-ho, the widow of former President Kim Dae-jung, has been seeking to visit Pyongyang to give hand-knit hats, scarves, and clothes to North Korean children. On Tuesday, the two sides agreed that Lee will travel by land and visit orphanages in the north. The chief South Korean delegate made clear that the former First Lady was making the trip following an invitation from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
We reaffirmed his invitation to the former First Lady and discussed how that is the basis of her trip to Pyongyang.
If the trip takes place as planned, there's speculation that Lee might be able to meet with the North Korean leader.
If she visits the north with a message from President Park Geun-hye, there's a possibility she will meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. If that happens, the trip will represent a positive contribution to improving inter-Korean relations.
The delegations from the two Koreas agreed to meet again soon to further discuss the details. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, for the first time ever, a South Korean candidate has been elected to head the International Maritime Organization. Lim Ki-tack, who is currently president of Busan Port Authority, was elected as the next Secretary General of the United Nations Maritime Body after a final round of voting in London on Tuesday. He beat out 5 other candidates from Denmark, Cyprus, Russia, Kenya and the Philippines. Now, he will assume his 4-year post from January 1st, replacing the incumbent Secretary General from Japan. Im started attending IMO meetings as part of Korean delegations from 1986, and he actively participated in maritime safety and environmental protection issues for a few decades now. The decision of the Council will be submitted to the IMO Assembly in November for final approval. The outbreak of Middle East respiratory syndrome in Korea is showing signs of abating, but concerns are growing about the people who have been affected by the virus, especially the family members of those who died. The Health Ministry says it has conducted psychological consultations on more than 900 people, including those who lost family members, as well as those who have been quarantined or have recovered from the MERS virus. It found that more than 40% of the respondents were experiencing either depression or insomnia. Meanwhile, no new cases of MERS have been reported for 4 straight days now, and that leaves the number of confirmed cases unchanged at 182. The number of patients discharged from hospital after making complete recoveries now stands at 95. 54 people remain in hospital, with 13 in unstable condition, while over 2,600 people remain in isolation as suspected cases. The death toll stands at 33. Now to the latest on the debt crisis gripping the Eurozone, and with time rapidly running out to save itself from default, Greece has handed in a last-ditch proposal for a new 2-year rescue deal. Now, no special details have been given, but the written offer from Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras involves a proposal to dip into the European Stability Mechanism, or ESM. This is a $560 billion bailout fund, and as well as that, it also outlines further steps to restructure Greece's debt. Now, Eurozone finance ministers have been holding an emergency teleconference to assess the Greek government's proposal. Without a last-minute deal, in under 1 hour from now, Greece's bailout program will expire, and it will default on a $1.8 billion IMF loan. Now, if this happens, European officials say Athens will instantly lose access to almost $20 billion in financial support. It will also become the first developed nation to ever miss a debt repayment to the IMF. The deadline for a nuclear deal with Iran has been extended until July 7th. Officials from the 5 major powers locked in talks with Tehran believe the extension will allow more time to figure out a long-term solution to Iran's nuclear ambitions. The US State Department made the announcement after US Secretary of State John Kerry met with Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif for almost 2 hours in Vienna on Tuesday. The extension was granted as Tehran is thought to have met a key condition, namely significantly reducing its stocks of enriched uranium that could be used for nuclear weapons. The US-led regional free trade deal known as the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, has taken another step towards completion. 12 countries have already joined this TPP. The question on everyone's lips here is, though, will Korea be next? Our Gwon-soa weighs up the country's options.
This is so much fun. We should do it again. That's what U.S. President Barack Obama said Monday local time while signing a crucial bill that will give him the authority to fast-track a number of trade deals, including the TPP. The question here in Seoul is whether the pact will also be fun for Korea, a country that is still deciding whether or not to join.
Joining this networking will be very important for the Korean manufacturing sector, our textile industry sector, or some chemical sector.
If launched, the TPP will cover 40% of the global economy. Its current 12 members include Japan, which plays a leading role with the US, Canada, Australia, and Singapore. Korea already has separate trade deals with 10 of the TPP members. Some say that's one reason why Korea should also participate, while others say that's why it's unnecessary. The TPP arrangement for Korea would cover items that are similar to those in the Korea-US FTA, which has raised concerns within the country's often vocal agriculture sector. Experts say economic diplomacy is another concern.
The TPP has been characterized as an economic alliance for the US to contain China. But because Korea's top trade partner is China and not the US, Korea should re-examine the question of joining the TPP from square one.
There's not much time left for Korea to decide. The original members are expected to hold a ministerial meeting at the end of July to finalize negotiations, and President Obama is aiming to see the deal ratified during his time in office. Gwon-soa, Arirang News.
Now, sluggish demand and disappointing exports weighed down on Korea's industrial output in May. This knocked local manufacturers' confidence, with business sentiment plunging to levels not seen since the height of the global financial crisis. Kim Min-ji reports.
Korea's industrial output fell for the third straight month in May.
Despite a rise in the construction sector, overall production fell 0.6% in May from the previous month due to slow outbound shipments.
The agency said a sharp drop in exports pulled down production, particularly in the auto and semiconductor sectors. Outbound shipments fell nearly 11% on-year in May.
Slumping exports and weak global economic growth have weighed down on production. It's expected to fall further as the recent MERS outbreak will impact next month's figures.
And the poor economic conditions are being reflected in the business sentiment among local firms, with the key index dipping to its lowest level in more than 6 years. The business survey index in the manufacturing sector tumbled to 66, down 7 points on month. That's the lowest since the 56 recorded in March of 2009, and even lower than the months following last April's Seoul ferry disaster. It also hit below the benchmark 100, signaling more firms hold a pessimistic outlook. Experts say the overall economic conditions could start to pick up in the second half of the year when the effects of the government's supplementary budget start to kick in, but stress that the effort should last in the long run. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Have a wonderful rest of the day or night, wherever you're watching us. And thank you, as always, for watching. We do hope to see you at the same time tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.